Good afternoon and welcome to Willows Green Permaculture. My name is Stephen Dixon, and today I want to talk to you about two species of insects, completely different species, cooperating with each other for their mutual benefit. I'm also going to show you what we did with everything that was in the garlic patch after we harvested the garlic, what we did with it, where we put it, and what we did with the garlic patch. I'm also going to talk to you about harvesting our onions that are around our cabbage, about carrots, about beets, and also about protecting your squash from the squash vine borer, and about helping your bean vines to better hold your corn up. So if this is something you're interested in, then let's get started. So in many of my videos, I talk about working with nature, working with animals, working with insects, with birds, with amphibians, with mammals, with all the with bacteria, with all the animals, all the life that's out there, with fungi, and rather than trying to fight it, rather than trying to work against it. And I've talked a lot about the fact that in nature, there are a couple rules that are always taking place. First of all, abundance is a rule of nature. Nature produces abundance when it's given freedom, and also in nature there's cooperation rather than competition. In nature, very often you have different species. Well, first of all, within a species you see animals cooperating all the time, but also between species, completely different species cooperating with each other for their mutual benefit. And today, here's an example. So on the underside of the leaves of this sunflower, I'm not going to actually pull the ones up where it has it because I don't want to disturb them. There are some ants that are working with, or I guess coexisting or cooperating with, some keeled treehoppers, Entilia carinata. And basically what's going on, often we'll see ants doing this with aphids, but in this case, it's with these keeled treehoppers. There is an adult keeled treehopper on the underside of this leaves, on the underside of several of these leaves. There's, under each one, there's a single adult, I believe, at least under one of them there is. And under each leaf, there are many, many, many nymphs of the keeled treehopper. And then there are some ants that are taking care of these nymphs and taking care of the adult. And I'm going to show you the images. It's quite something. And basically what they're doing is the ants are taking care of both the nymphs and the adult. They're providing them protection. And because as you can see, when I'm looking under the leaves and I'm getting close, the ants start to get excited, and then they start to get anxious, and they start to move around because they feel my presence, and so I'm this gigantic danger to them, and so they're providing protection, and at the same time, these nymphs are providing the ants a type of what's called honeydew. So you'll notice the ants with their antenna, they're kind of stroking the nymphs, and they're also stroking the adult, and probably doing several different things. But by stroking the nymphs, they are gaining access to the honeydew. And so the honeydew, it provides food for the ants, and the ants are providing protection and care for the nymphs, and for the keeled treehopper. And so it's just one of many, many examples of how different animals cooperate with each other. I've given you a lot of stories about our cats, how they work together and so on. But if you want to learn more in detail about how many different species cooperate with each other and all sorts of other really interesting things about all the species that live on this planet, then I recommend this book, The Diversity of Life. I read it many, many years ago. It's by E.O. Wilson. An excellent read. And then, of course, if you want to read the book that got me started on thinking how similar we are to animals and animals are to us and all sort of species, this book is a really interesting read. Zoobiquity, What Animals Can Teach Us About Being Human, by Barbara Natterson Horowitz, MD, and Catherine Bowers. Another really excellent read. I think I read this about 10 or 15 years ago as well. Anecdote about the conversation between the veterinarian and the doctor is priceless. And in this case, we've got three species going on here. We've got the sunflower, the ants, and the keeled treehoppers. So you can see me here filming under the sunflowers after supper yesterday, and now here I'm showing you the adult keeled treehopper being tended to by one of the ants. And here in this image, I'm showing you two ants that are communicating with each other. And then here in this image, I'm showing you basically the ants that are tending to the nymphs. And so it's quite something. Now for what we did with the garlic patch after the harvest and what we did with the plants that were already growing in there. I'm about to sow some buckwheat into the garlic area, and also transplant a few squash and a watermelon that were left over. And I'm going to rake the buckwheat into the soil just like that. Just rake the seeds in, and I've pulled out all the raspberries that are growing there because I'm going to transplant them to the contour of the garden areas where I'm going to put them in one spot where there's a big huge ant hill. Going to give them the tops of the raspberries and bury the bottoms right into the hill. And then this, this was going right in the middle. Actually, no, not right in the middle, right on the edge. So I just, I cut it about 30 centimeters from the bottom, so it's still growing, but now it's not shading out the squash that's starting to head its way. And now we got this nice harvest of yarrow. This is gonna make lots of pots of yarrow tea. So the ant hill is right there. Just put a little bit of grass. So the ants are gonna become active in a minute. I see it's still there. That's fine. I don't think they're gonna eat the raspberries. Last year I planted a few tomatoes in here. They kind of got a little bit eaten up by the ants, but they managed to survive and give a couple tomatoes. So if tomato plants, little tomato plants can manage to survive, all these raspberries are gonna manage to survive there. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 2/3 of the green top off and just leave maybe 1 or 2 of the bottom leaf branches here. And just because it's mainly the root that I want to get that in as soon as possible. We just had a rain, and we're going to have a bit more rain later this afternoon. There's also a little bit of yarrow in here and a little bit of wild bergamot. All this stuff was growing in the middle of the garlic patch that, it started this spring from roots that were in there since last year. And so I can't let them develop. And so now some of them might have grown from seed too, because they're right beside the raspberry patch, but I can't let them develop. Because otherwise I'm gonna lose my garlic patch to the raspberries. And so, but this is the perfect spot. It's gonna fill in a sort of an empty spot along our contour. And actually I'm gonna use the loose soil on another day to transplant a few grapes into there, and they'll grow up the raspberries and up to the fence, and then grow up the fence and join that other grape that's there and the grapes that are over there. So, and you know what, like I said, the raspberries are kind of woody compared to tomatoes, so I think the ants are going to leave them alone. I've basically dug a trench beside the ant hill, not into the ant hill, but I am going to pull all that grass that the ants have let grow, and I'm going to just put it along the side here so they can come and eat the roots if they want to. Maybe they've been feeding off of them. But I'm going to plant the raspberries into this little trench I've made here. It looks like it's pretty small for all these, but I don't know if they're all going to survive. And I'll plant them real thickly. And even if only a dozen of them survive, that'll be plenty to fill this whole area up eventually with raspberries. And of course the yarrow and the wild bergamot, well, they're going to add to it as well. All of them are good species to have along this contour. As you can see, there's wild bergamot there. There's wild bergamot on the inside. And there's yarrow elsewhere along this contour. Grass was fairly easy to pull because the roots, of course, were growing right into the anthill. The anthill seemed to basically be taking care of that grass, but I'm hoping it likes the raspberries as well. Now they're hard at work fixing all the damage I just created. Sorry about that, little ants. Let me get closer here. You can see them at work. Yep. Sorry about that. At least you got a cloudy day you can do your work on. You're not going to get too hot. I'm going to build you a shelter with raspberry plants instead. They're going to give you more climate control than grass, I think. Well, maybe grass gives you year-long climate control. Not so much in winter. Ants, of course, are true lovers of climate control. They like to be under rocks and under logs. And as we learned this morning, under sunflower leaves. Well, those ants weren't living there. They were tending to some keeled treehoppers. Okay, let's cut these shorter. And all the tops, all the green tops, I'm going to put right onto the anthill to feed it. In fact, I'm going to feed the stems right into the anthill, and maybe they'll take root as well. Here we go. The tops of all the plants are all cut off. There are the bottoms. A lot less plant for these roots to take care of. Left a few leaves anyway, just in case the roots need to grab some of that energy. But they're not going to have to try and take care of all, send sugars and water and sort of up to all those leaves. But like I said, these stems I'm going to push into the anthill, and these roots I'm not actually going to plant into the anthill. You can't be finicky when you're doing this kind of work. Looks like it's, probably the plants didn't like it, but they're resilient. I'm hoping they bounce back. There's a lot of loose soil here that I'm going to be able to use to cover these roots up. And then I'll shake all the rest of the loose soil from the grass back onto the anthill. There they are, all in place. Now I'm just going to pull this soil and cover up the roots. Not going to show the whole process. Covered them all up in soil now. They're kind of bent towards me there and away from there, but that's okay. They'll eventually straighten out. And I had to bend some of the roots and so on to make sure they'd all get into the ground, because I didn't dig very deep. Didn't want to dig too deep. And now I'm going to push most of those stems that are there right into the anthill, and some of them I'm going to just lay on top of all these to mulch them while their roots are adapting to their new place. And I'm going to give them water and hope for a good rain this afternoon. This is all I'm going to do with the tops, because I don't expect them to grow, but they might. Just going to put them into the anthill, and hopefully these will provide any missing food for the ants from all that grass that I pulled. So I'm just going to do it like this. I'm not going to show the whole process, but there you go. These stems are pretty hard, so they go in. Not going to put them all, and the rest are going to mulch the whole thing. And because they're going to be mulching the whole thing, the ants are going to be able to eat all these raspberry leaves if they want. And raspberry leaves, for humans anyways, are really healthy. Make tea out of raspberry. Very, very good for you. So I'm sure if they're healthy for us, they're probably healthy for the ants too, because we are between 50 and 99% the same as most other living beings on this planet. Apparently, and I haven't verified this, we are at least 60% identical to fruit flies and even to bananas, genetically speaking. And there it is. From basically a grassy anthill, making a big space in our contour, open to the deer and raccoons and so on, we now have a whole bunch of raspberries, some yarrow and wild bergamot. I don't know if the yarrow and the wild bergamot will survive, and likely these raspberries won't either because they don't have roots, but it's these ones I'm counting on. And if even only 1/3 of them survive or less, they're still going to fill this whole area up. And as you can see, the ants don't eat everything, because you can look at this oregano patch that's thriving. Of course, makes sense, insects, they're like humans, they like sweet stuff, and so they've left the oregano alone. They found the tomatoes a little sweeter last year. I don't think they're going to find these raspberries very sweet. We'll see. Theme of this video, multi-species cooperative gardening and multi-species farming. A little bit of soil left in that grass. I might shake it loose a little later. Now I'm going to give these guys a little bit of water. Only brought a little bit. That should be plenty. Here we are. There's our garlic patch with most of the weeds removed. I'm going to rake this once just to get any big stems out, and then broadcast sow the buckwheat. Another advantage of a season's worth of leaf cover is look at how easily this grass roots came out. Now there's really not much leaf cover left, but that's because the fairly thick leaf cover I put at the beginning of last November, just after planting all of the garlic cloves into the soil. Well, it wasn't that thick. It needed to be thin enough that the garlic could actually grow through. So it wasn't so thick that it would create a thick mat, but it was still fairly thick. You can see that in one of my former videos from the fall about planting garlic. And but you can see most of it's gone. And why is it gone? Because the worms and all the other soil life has eaten most of it. I've actually seen worms pull leaves down into the soil. It's quite something. Sometimes if there are lots of them, you can actually hear it happening. The crunch, crunch, crunch of the worms pulling the leaves down into the soil. Look here. I got some grass here. First of all, it's been these roots are what looks like above ground, because before I harvested the garlic, they weren't above ground. They were under leaves and stuff. So look at this. Look at it. I'm going to pull both of these at the same time. Actually, no, one at a time. Watch. Look at that. Here's one. Let's pull this one now. Gee, look at that. You can hear it pulling out of the soil. Look at that. Nice. Shouldn't be grass in this soil. Got in here because of some not pure compost that I had delivered a few times. Rain's coming. Let's get moving. A couple last garlics that I found in the garden. And here is a pound of buckwheat seed. I don't know if I'm going to need all of it. We'll see. Hear the thunder in the distance. All right. Here's my seed. Basically, all I'm going to do is this. I'm just going to throw it onto the soil like this. Not going to, so just so I can see that there's lots of seed. You probably can't even see the seed falling, but anyway, and then I'm just gonna rake it in. That's it. Do the whole thing like this. Probably I'm gonna use the whole pound. What is it, like $1.99 a buckwheat seed? All done. I can hear that thunder. The rain's coming. I just have to rake it in. Magali calls me a druid. It's every time I plant anything, and it's been this way all my life, it rains afterwards. Or at the very most within 24 hours, but very often just as I finish. Like, the same thing happened when I worked with students and did planting projects with students in schools. We'd get a rain right after all the kids had gone in, after all the work was done. Just a simple raking, just like that. While I rake, I see extra weeds that need to be pulled. Like this grass. Oh, here's some more. Try not to step too much everywhere. However, the soil, as you saw, is loose. I do want to get rid of this grass. However, as the buckwheat grows, I'll probably see more grass growing. I'll be able to pull it out easily. Look at all that. Okay, all done. All raked. I'm just going to throw these in there. This was a cutting of a watermelon that I just threw in this pot, and it sprouted roots. And these are a bunch of seeds that I sowed just a few days ago. I don't know if I put the date. No, I didn't put the, hold on. Oh yes, I did put the date. What am I talking about? July 11th. Oh, it's the 18th today, so that was a week ago. A week ago I sowed these. preparation for today. Normally I wouldn't transplant like this, but anyway, just in case they grow. These are the plants that I really want to see growing into the pumpkin patch. I mean into the garlic patch, so let's hope that they do that. There's watermelon and squash. We'll see. There's some more squash over there that can come this way. Lots of light here. Lots of light here. Eh? The three sisters. Let's pull back a little. Look at those. The corn is now up to the linked part of the teepees, and the beans are right up to the, pretty well up to the top of all of them too. Very nice. All done. The buckwheat's all raked in, and I've planted a few pots of squash and one of watermelon. And 3 of those pots, I planted 8. 3 of them, I left them in the pots, just as an experiment. See if they manage to grow normally. Because one of those pots, that one right, hold on, right there, has some sycamore seed in it. So if that sycamore sprouts, then I'm gonna pull the pot out in the fall. Also way over there, I should have left that one in the pot. That one has got some sycamore in it as well. And more grass roots pulled up. I don't even think it's been 4 minutes since I finished, and the rain has started. God bless the rain. The next day. So here's my garlic patch, and here behind this bergamot is a squash that I would like to see growing along in here. So I'd like it to become even stronger, even in these really hot, dry days. And so I'm going to do 2 things here to make it stronger. I've got basically some composted leaves here, semi-composted leaves. And I'm going to cover up this portion of the stem, especially at the leaf nodes. There and there, maybe there, maybe there. And if I see flower buds or whatever, I'm going to try not to cover them. And this is going to do 2 things. This leaf mold, which is close to earth, let's say, well, it's gonna protect these stems from being seen by the squash vine borer. So the borer is not going to see them to come and, let's say, lay its eggs here. Also, by covering them like this, okay, just going to take these leaves and cover the stem up and cover at least 2 of these nodes. Let's not cover this one for the moment. I'll just show it to you. Anywhere along the vines, on any of these leaf nodes, where the leaves meet the stem, the vine has a potential of growing roots. And so, pull this vine back to its base. Here is the vine's base. You see that? There's potential damage there, possibly by a squash vine borer that's already boring into that. Now, I'm not going to go take a knife and cut it open and try and get the borer out, because I'm just going to end up killing the plant myself rather than the vine borer. You know, I mean, I guess some people are really good at that, but I don't think I was born to be a surgeon. Anyway, so I'm just going to leave that there. I'll probably cover it up with some leaves too, but you see, by covering these leaf nodes up, where they're covered up, they can sprout more roots. And so if this section of the vine dies and the roots are disconnected from the rest of the vine, well, there'll be more roots here. And so the vine will not only be protected from squash vine borer damage, but it'll also get extra roots and grow stronger and be able to continue to grow. So that's what I hope. And I'll do that along every one of them. whenever I have a chance. It's also, of course, going to keep the soil moist. Here are our first onion bulbs. First full-size onion bulbs of the year. Now these actually grew with our cabbage, and they were from onion sets that I had put into large little pots before actually transplanting them in with the cabbage when I transplanted the cabbage. And these are amongst the best onions that, for size, that I've grown, and also they're just so solid. And so I may just, it's because they had so much space, really. I mean, they don't have any space anymore, but it's time to harvest them because now they're all underneath the cabbage leaves. So I'm going to harvest all these now, and I'm going to know in the future that I've got to give my onions a lot more space. You know your onions are ready when the leaves have fallen and they don't seem to have too much life left in them, and that's the time to start curing your onions. And if your onions aren't covered with all sorts of other plants like mine are, then the best way to cure them is actually in the garden, and to make sure these leaves are all lying down and the onions are exposed to the sun. However, in my case, I'm just gonna have to pick all these and cure these in the sun for maybe a day. If I want to store them long term, if I just want to use them in the kitchen right away, then I'll just bring them to the kitchen. But as you can see, they're very, very firm. I'm squeezing them and nothing's going on. The other ones, and there are a few more inside. Just harvested the ones I could find. Now they're hard to find under the cabbage. I should have harvested these a few days ago. And I see another one there too. It's all about observation and timing. Found a couple more here. A few days ago this would have been a little easier because the marigolds were a bit smaller. All the other companion plants were a bit smaller, and the cabbage were just slightly a bit smaller too. Practicing this double recording. I'm recording myself and the onions at the same time. So here are the onions from the cabbage patch. There may be more. There were actually a few more I left in there because they had gone to seed, and so they're just going to be hard onions. And actually a couple of these might be the same way. But I'm pretty happy with these onions here. They're a nice size for our gardens. Just gonna let them cure in the sun for a few hours. Bring them inside and maybe let them cure in the sun again tomorrow. Picked a few beets too. Been picking about this many every couple days over the last week and a half, just to have some beets to make juice with or to eat with supper. Really nice. And then here are the carrot thinnings that I do about every day or every second day. Bring them in for supper and give more room for the other carrots. And the garlic patch the day after. I cleaned up and sowed the buckwheat. The squash is already starting to head in there. And the watermelon too. When I see big long bean vines hanging down freely, this is what I do with this bean vine. Is plenty long enough that I'm going to be able to continue to wrap it around the outside of this corn stalk and wrap it around that teepee there. I don't know if you're going to be able to see me as I do it. And the stems are like, they're somewhat sticky. And if you feed them through these little sort of the bases of the leaves, they get stuck there and the leaves kind of hold them in place. So watch what I'm going to do here. So I'm going to just put this, so it's, here it is. There's the stem. So I'm going to wrap it around this corn stalk on the outside of it, the side where it could fall. Now I'm going to get in behind this leaf, and now I'm going to go through these leaves that are just above it. Maybe get behind them too. And I'm going to get past all these other corn stalk leaves. Now it's all the way up here. And now, I reach my hand around here. And then I'm going to just pull this. And now I've only got just a little bit left. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tuck it in underneath this leaf here and get it so that it's sticking to some of these other, see, look, see this leaf here? I'm just going to get the top to stick to this leaf. Watch. It should stick there. Watch. Yeah, leave it there, and it just stays there. It doesn't have to be strong because it's wrapped around. The rest of the stem is strong. It just has to be able to stay there, and as it continues to grow from here, then it'll get the attachment will get stronger. This is one way where I help the process along a little bit. Sometimes when a corn stalk has fallen from either being partially foraged or from the wind or something else, I'll put a stake up as well to hold it up. And if it's heavy, I will also just kind of force it through the inside of the teepee, through the other corn stalks, and they'll all help to hold it up. As long as it stays standing and continues to grow, then it will find its way to the sun again and straighten up and get stronger at its base too. Here's another vine and another little corn stalk that needs a little bit of help. And it's got a vine actually pulling it in the opposite direction. So it's going to have vines pulling it in two directions, which actually should help it have an even better chance of staying standing. So I'm going to get in between this leaf node and the other vine that's holding on to it. Pull this through as far as I can. As far as there. Now it's taut. And now I'm going to pull it towards. You see how it's pulling the other vine up, and both vines are holding it in place. Now I've got all this on top here, so I'm just going to feed it in through here somehow. It's hard to do with the camera, the phone in my other hand, but anyway, I'm just going to feed it through all these other vines so that it has something to hook onto and stay and continue growing. There we are. Now this corn stalk is standing a little straighter up. These two little corn stalks, even though they're small, they might get corn cobs much later in the season. But what's useful from them right now are these tassels, which are going to serve to pollinate the corn cobs when they start to get formed. So I'm going to pull these so that they have a better chance of standing straight, and I'm going to just force them through this, under this leaf here and under this teepee pole here, so that they're kind of held in place by that. Sometimes you kind of have to be, force it a little bit, but they find their place with the sun. They might pop back out again, or at least one will stay and one will be on this side. If one stays, that's good. And actually, here's another vine right here, which I'm just going to put over. This one, it's not long enough to put out onto the teepee, but I can just wrap it around this corn stalk, and it will continue to grow up. It's coming from all the way over here. And also from up here, so it's going to hold this in place. So I've taken some corn stalks that have been completely torn out of the ground, and I've cut them up into shorter pieces, and I'm going to try and root them, you see, because at this root node sorry, at this stem node, and at this stem node, at this stem node, and so on, they should all be able to root. And so I'm just going to put them in here in the water I leave here for the animals and see if these guys root. There's two nodes there that could sprout roots. 1, 2, 3 nodes there that could sprout roots. There's 1 node there that can sprout roots. And this little thin piece. There's a developing node right there that might be able to sprout roots. We'll see. Squash and the pumpkin patch is coming along well. In an upcoming video, I will update how the loofah's doing. It's doing quite well, but I'd like to give you a little detail right now of one single vine that decided to take an alternate route towards the sun. The loofah starting over there, came over here, considered the sunflower, but then grew over here. Well, I guided it to the mustard. Now it's going to grow up the mustard here. It's been slowly making its way to it, and now it's quite attached to the mustard. Taken some of the intermediate leaves off to take some of the shade away. The top leaves are still there. It's going to grow up that stem. I hope you liked the video. Hope you found it useful. Hope you learned something from it. If you liked it, then please give it the thumbs up and share it with your friends. And oh, by the way, and if you have a comment or a question, don't hesitate to leave it, because I've got some news for you. As you know, I respond to all your comments and questions. Well, I noticed today I am able to respond to comments using basically recording my voice, which allows me to make more personalized comments. It's going to allow me to make more detailed comments, because often in the past I'd be writing a long answer and then it would suddenly just disappear on me. And oh, that was frustrating. And sometimes, I'd have to even write it on Word separately, but that's so much trouble. Now, being able to record my voice, it's going to go a lot more quickly. It's going to save me a lot more time, and it's going to allow me to make a lot more personalized responses when there are, details that I'd like to provide you for a question or comment you make. So please don't hesitate to leave a question or a comment. Thank you very much for watching. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time. July 19th. The watermelon has filled the patch. The buckwheat mixed in with the peppers here is getting tall. It's going to give those peppers a little bit of shade that they like, along with those parsley flower and a few sunflowers that surround the parsley. 2 over there, 1 here, and 1 here. The beginnings of some cobs.